In May 1980, USGS volcanologist David Johnston told the press Mount St. Helens was a dynamite keg with the fuse lit. On the morning of May 18th, the mountain blew sideways, and Johnston died at his post 6 miles north of the summit. He was 30 years old, killed by exactly the explosion he had warned the public about, and his body has never been recovered. 57 people lost their lives that morning. Most of them were outside the official red zone the state had drawn around the volcano. They were in places they were legally allowed to be, some of them holding logging permits issued by Washington itself. The USGS geologists working the mountain had wanted the boundary set much larger. The state overruled them in the weeks before the eruption. The Weyerhaeuser Lumber Company owned the standing timber on the northwest side of the volcano. The exclusion line on the official map kept the company's clear-cut operations outside the restricted area. Had the eruption hit on a weekday, hundreds of loggers in the so-called blue zone would have been killed too, every one of them legally permitted to be there. A USGS scientist named Voight had submitted a formal hazards report on May 1st, exactly 17 days before the eruption. The document predicted the failure of the bulged north flank and a violent eruption to follow it. The state read the warning, and the boundary on the map didn't move an inch. The mountain had already given everyone a preview of what was coming. On March 27th of 1980, a phreatic eruption blasted a new crater 250 feet wide through the summit. From that moment on, USGS instruments stayed on the volcano around the clock. The agency knew a major event was building behind the bulged flank. To understand what killed Johnston, you've got to look at what was buried beneath the summit. Starting in late March of 1980, USGS instruments were picking up something strange about the north face of Mount St. Helens. The whole flank was pushing outward at roughly 5 to 6 feet per day. By mid-May, the slope stuck out more than 400 feet from where it had been a month earlier. Some pressurized body underground was shoving the mountainside outward from within. That body of magma was called a cryptodome. A cryptodome is a mass of fresh magma that intrudes into the upper part of a volcano without breaking the surface. Picture a balloon of molten rock the size of a small skyscraper jammed into the mountain a few hundred meters below the summit. It's loaded with dissolved water and gas. The lithostatic pressure of all the rock stacked above keeps the whole mixture in solution. As long as that overburden pressure holds, the magma stays liquid and the gas stays trapped inside it. Now, imagine ripping the entire side off the mountain in a single coherent motion. That's what happened at 8:32 in the morning on May 18, 1980. A magnitude 5.1 earthquake centered directly under the north flank triggered the failure of the bulge. The whole side of the mountain slid away as one rockslide avalanche, and the Cryptodome was unroofed in seconds. Here's the physics of what came next. The confining pressure on the magma dropped from tens of atmospheres down to 1 in less time than it takes to breathe in. The dissolved water and dissolved gas in the magma flashed instantly to vapor. The Cryptodome converted itself into a steam and rock explosion in milliseconds. It's the same physics as ripping the side off a champagne bottle, except the contents were around 680 degrees Fahrenheit, and the body was the size of a small skyscraper. The direction of the explosion was set by the direction the rock had gone. The rock went north, so the blast went north. The front of that horizontal pyroclastic surge initially traveled at around 220 miles an hour. The leading edge of the surge briefly approached the speed of sound. It flattened roughly 230 square miles of forest in a fan-shaped zone reaching 17 miles from the summit. The trees fell pointing away from the volcano like compass needles. 4 billion board feet of timber went down inside 1 minute. Johnston was stationed at the Coldwater II observation post on a ridge 6 miles north of the volcano. USGS had put him there to lead the volcanic gas emission monitoring program for the agency. At 8:32 and 11 seconds, the moment the lateral blast erupted, he radioed his headquarters in Vancouver, Washington. His 3-word transmission has been quoted in every volcanology textbook since. The radio call read, "Vancouver, Vancouver,
This is it. The surge reached his ridge less than a minute later and tore the observation trailer off the ground. His remains have never been found in any search. In 1993, construction workers building a highway extension uncovered a piece of his USGS trailer half buried in volcanic deposits. The debris avalanche that triggered the whole event was the largest landslide ever recorded on Earth. Nearly 3 cubic kilometers of north flank slid down the Toutle River Valley at speeds up to 150 miles an hour. The slide removed roughly 1,300 feet from the mountain's top in less than a minute. Mount St. Helens stood at 9,677 feet of elevation that morning. By the time the dust had settled that afternoon, it was 8,363 feet tall. The volcano lost more than a quarter of its height in the span of one Sunday morning. Spirit Lake at the foot of the volcano was buried under the avalanche the moment the slide hit it. The water itself survived, but the lake's surface rose about 200 feet because the natural outlet got blocked by debris. Today, around 40% of Spirit Lake is covered by a floating raft of dead timber blown down by the lateral blast. Those trees still float on the water 46 years later. Harry Truman, the 83-year-old owner of the lodge on Spirit Lake, had refused every evacuation order for 2 months running. He died at the lake when the slide arrived. His body sits under 150 feet of avalanche debris the authorities never tried to dig through. 2 years after Johnston was killed, USGS officially renamed its Vancouver, Washington field office the David A. Johnston Cascades Volcano Observatory in his honor. In 1997, the agency opened a viewing platform on the ridge above Coldwater II. They built it near the spot where Johnston had radioed his final message and named the new facility Johnston Ridge Observatory. Visitors who walk out to the public overlook today are standing within sight of where he was killed, predicting his own death. Mount St. Helens has been seismically active again since February of 2024. About 350 earthquakes have been recorded under the volcano in that period, almost all of them below magnitude 1. USGS interprets the swarm as recharge, meaning slow magma pressurization of the upper reservoir from depth. It's not a sign of an imminent eruption. The mountain went through similar recharge sequences in the late 80s and through the 90s without producing another major event. The current viral content about Mount St. Helens about to blow doesn't match what the seismic data actually shows. The science says wait and watch what the volcano does next. A state agency drawing the safe zone too small around an active geological hazard sounds familiar for a reason. The Bureau of Reclamation did the same kind of thing with the Teton Dam 4 years before Johnston was killed. That video's right here on Sketchy Science.